Right then, before we step back in time, do hit that like button and subscribe if you've not already, won't you? And tell me, where are you tuning in from and what time is it for you right now? Because for us, we're about to drop right into the beating heart of Victorian London, a world of gaslight and shadows, of rigid rules and hidden desires. The year is 1888, the place. A grand ballroom deep in the opulent heart of Mayfair. You've just pushed through the heavy velvet curtains and instantly a particular smell hits you, a cloying sweetness, a mix of dozens of expensive perfumes, mingled with the earthy scent of beeswax from polished floors and the faint, almost metallic tang of gaslight burning low. It's a scent that promises luxury, yet whispers of something artificial, something almost suffocating beneath the surface. Then you see it, the emerald glow. It washes over everything, not quite a natural green, but a deep jewel-like hue that seems to emanate from every corner of the vast room. The gaslights themselves are shrouded in frosted emerald glass, casting an otherworldly pallor on every face, every sweeping gown, every polished brass detail. You can feel the light on your skin, almost cool, as if you've stepped into a strange, underwater grotto rather than a high society event. The air around you is thick, not just with scents, but with the hushed murmur of polite conversation, the gentle swish of silk, and the distant, lilting strains of a string quartet. You find yourself moving through the press of bodies, your gloved hand brushing against stiff brocades and soft velvets. The whalebone of your own corsetry feels unyielding, a constant, firm reminder of the era's demands. Each step you take on the grand parquet floor feels strangely amplified by the silence within the general hum. You watch the other guests, their faces painted in shades of unnatural green by the light. The women, with their impossibly tiny waists and elaborate coiffures, seem like delicate porcelain dolls, their eyes unnervingly bright in the emerald wash. Men in their crisp evening wear move with an almost theatrical grace, their smiles fixed, their gazes darting across the room, assessing, judging. You notice the subtle twitch of a fan, the brief, almost imperceptible narrowing of eyes, a tiny ripple of tension beneath the grand facade. Everyone here is performing, playing a part, their true selves carefully hidden beneath layers of etiquette and fine clothing. A sense of unease begins to prickle at the back of your neck. This glow, this insistent, all-encompassing green, feels less like a color of vibrancy and more like something that subtly bleeds the natural vitality from the scene. It hides the flush of true emotion, perhaps even the signs of a deeper malaise. You can't quite shake the feeling that this perfection, so painstakingly created, comes at a silent, invisible cost. The room gleams with a borrowed, artificial beauty, and you wonder what truths it obscures. What lies, what secrets are being perfectly preserved in this emerald light? You're still in that emerald-drenched ballroom, the gaslight casting its unnerving hue, but now something else begins to draw your attention. It's a faint, almost sickly sweet aroma that occasionally drifts through the air, distinct from the perfumes. A hint of almonds, perhaps, or something equally subtle, yet sharp enough to catch your notice amidst the general cloying scent. You breathe it in, a strange curiosity mingling with a flicker of unease. Your gaze now shifts, moving past the shimmering gowns and starched collars, searching for something beneath the surface. You notice a woman near the refreshments table, her hand trembling ever so slightly as she lifts a small glass of punch. Her complexion, even under the green glow, seems unnaturally pale, almost waxy. Her smile, fixed for a moment on a passing acquaintance, feels brittle, as if it might shatter at any second. You see a vein throbbing faintly at her temple, a quick pulse of hidden agitation. Then, across the room, you spot another, a gentleman, usually so robust, leaning a little too heavily against a pillar. His eyes, though wide and attentive, carry a faint, almost unfocused glaze, and you catch the quick, involuntary swallow he makes, as if battling a rising nausea. He adjusts his cravat, a gesture that seems less about neatness and more about distracting from some inner discomfort. You realize it's not just one or two, there are others. A subtle flush on one woman's neck, quickly obscured by a high collar, a sudden, sharp cough from an elderly man, quickly masked by a silk handkerchief. The music plays on, a waltz that beckons everyone to spin and sway, but you see a stiffness in some of the movements, a slight lack of grace, as if their bodies are resisting the rhythm. The outward show of elegance remains, a veneer of unblemished perfection. Yet, if you look closely enough, if you really feel the air and observe the subtle tremors, the forced smiles, the rapid, shallow breaths, you begin to perceive the delicate crack in the porcelain. You wonder what hidden battles are being fought under these layers of silk and lace, beneath the deceptive emerald glow. The pursuit of beauty, of status, of an ideal can be a heavy burden, demanding more than just a graceful posture or a charming smile. It can demand a toll on the very body itself. You step out of the bustling thoroughfare, leaving the rumble of carriages and the shouts of street vendors behind. The air immediately changes, thickening, growing warmer, and a strange, almost sweet chemical smell fills your nostrils. A cloying mix of glue, fabric dye, and something sharp, almost metallic, that makes the back of your throat tickle. You found yourself in a small, cramped workshop, tucked away down a narrow, shadowy alley. The light here is weak, struggling to penetrate the grimy windows, so most of the illumination comes from sputtering gas lamps that cast dancing shadows across the room. Your eyes adjust and you begin to make out the scene. Long wooden tables stretch across the space, laden with piles of fabric scraps in every imaginable color, silks, satins, velvets, alongside intricate wires, tiny stamens, and pots of vivid dyes. The air hums with a quiet, persistent rustle as dozens of nimble fingers work tirelessly. You watch as young women, their faces smudged with pigment, bend over their tasks. Their hands move with astonishing speed and precision, snipping fabric with tiny shears, shaping petals with heated tools, and twisting wires into delicate stems. It's a hypnotic rhythm, a dance of creation where beauty blossoms from raw materials right before your eyes. You lean closer, observing a pair of hands carefully dipping a cluster of silk petals into a vibrant green dye. The color is breathtakingly rich, a luminous emerald that seems to vibrate with an inner light, almost identical to the green you saw dominating the ballroom. As the wet petals are laid out to dry, you notice a faint, powdery residue left behind on the table, shimmering faintly under the gaslight. You see one of the workers, a girl with startlingly pale skin and dark smudges under her eyes, wipe her forehead with the back of a hand that stained a deep, indelible green. She coughs, a dry, persistent sound that goes largely unnoticed amidst the quiet industry. This vibrant beauty, so desired by high society, demands a relentless, repetitive toil here. You feel a prickle of discomfort. How much of themselves, you wonder, do these hands give to create such flawless, transient perfection? What unseen costs are absorbed in the pursuit of such dazzling, artificial elegance? You're still in that cramped workshop, but now your attention is pulled to a subtle yet pervasive element, the air itself. It feels heavy, thick with a fine, almost invisible powder that seems to cling to everything. You can nearly taste it on your tongue, a dry, slightly bitter grit that coats your mouth. As you watch the women work, meticulously crafting those vibrant green petals, you start to notice tiny plumes rising with each snip, each brush of fabric. The light, already dim, catches these motes, making them shimmer like malevolent fairy dust in the meager gaslight. It's not just on the tables now, it's settled on their hair, dusted across their eyelashes, clinging to the rough fabric of their simple aprons. You see one young woman absent-mindedly rub her eye, and a faint green smear appears on her skin. Another takes a deep breath, and you almost feel the catch in her throat, the way the tiny particles must irritate the delicate lining of her lungs. Her movements, once precise, now seem to require a conscious effort, a slight slump in her shoulders. The relentless rhythm of their work continues, an unbroken chain of creation, but beneath it you perceive a deeper, more troubling cadence. The earlier coughs you heard now seem more frequent, a harsh, dry hacking that echoes off the low ceiling. Their voices, when they speak, are often raspy, hushed. You observe their hands, stained a persistent green, sometimes raw and chapped, as if the very color they impart to the artificial flowers is also slowly consuming their skin. You notice them try to wipe their mouths or noses with the backs of these same stained hands, an unconscious gesture that only serves to ingest more of the unseen menace. This isn't just about creating beauty anymore. It's about enduring. Each breath here is a gamble, each moment in this vibrant, dusty atmosphere a silent erosion of their well-being. The brilliance of the emerald flowers, so admired in the grand ballrooms, holds within it a stark contrast. The slow, insidious poison that these women unwittingly breathe in. You realize that some beauty, some perfection, isn't just expensive in monetary terms, but costs a far more precious currency, the very lifeblood and breath of those who create it. It makes you wonder what truly shines bright when the cost is so utterly devastating. You push open a heavy, unlatched door, and a surprisingly sweet, almost almond-like scent greets you immediately. It's faint but distinct, mingling with the familiar smells of starched linen and old, polished wood. You've just stepped into a nursery, tucked away on an upper floor of a grand Victorian house. It's not an especially large room, but it's clearly a space designed for a child of privilege. Even with the heavy, dark green velvet curtains drawn against the chill outside, a dim light manages to filter in, making the air feel soft, almost hushed. But it's not the curtains that truly capture your gaze. Your eyes are immediately drawn to the walls, covered floor to ceiling in a stunning, almost luminous emerald green wallpaper. It's an intricate pattern of leaves and intertwining vines, so vibrantly colored it seems to possess an inner glow, particularly in the patches where the soft light of a gas lamp catches it. The color is rich, deep, and utterly pervasive. This is that haunting, familiar green you've seen before in the opulent ballroom on the workshop floors, but here it coats a child's most intimate sanctuary. A small wooden crib stands against one wall, its crisp white linens a stark, almost startling contrast to the verdant backdrop. Tiny hand-stitched toys, some with faded pastel hues, lie scattered on a patterned rug, also threaded through with shades of green. A sturdy rocking horse, its painted mane a little chipped, sits patiently in a corner. On the surface, it's meant to be a cheerful, nurturing space, brimming with the promise of innocent play and peaceful rest. You take a step closer, your attention drawn to a small handprint, barely visible, smudged onto the green wallpaper near the head of the crib. It looks like a faint powdered pigment, or perhaps just a trick of the dim light. On a low, child-sized table, a collection of painted wooden blocks lies haphazardly, some bearing tiny, almost imperceptible teeth marks along their edges. One of these blocks, you notice, is painted that exact striking emerald hue. You can almost feel the smooth, slightly raised texture of the wallpaper as you pass, your fingers instinctively brushing against its surface. A fine, almost invisible dust seems to cling to your fingertips. The room feels unusually warm, a little close, and that faint almond scent you first noticed seems to grow stronger, or perhaps you're simply more attuned to it now, a subtle discomfort pricking at your senses. You see a tiny, well-loved rattle dropped beside the crib, its wooden handle stained and its small bells dulled, also featuring elements of that insistent green paint. There's a faint discoloration around the edges of the child's pillow, a pale green tint that's too uniform, too vibrant to be mere age or damp. You imagine a child waking here day after day, surrounded by this intense green, breathing in its very essence, its vibrant particles settling into every corner of their small world. This room, intended for comfort and safety, for the sweet innocence of childhood, now feels strangely unsettling. The overwhelming green, which at first seemed so charming, so full of life, begins to feel oppressive, almost sickly in its omnipresence. It's a beautiful color, yes, undeniably captivating, but it feels heavy, silent, almost predatory in its unwavering presence. The thought of a tiny, developing life existing within such an intensely verdant chamber sends a shiver down your spine. You realize how easily sheer aesthetic beauty can obscure a deeper, more profound danger. Something seemingly harmless, even exquisitely desirable, can quietly, slowly, and insidiously erode health and vitality. This perfect green, intended to be a delight, now reveals a far more complex hidden story. It makes you deeply consider the true cost of an ideal, especially when that ideal reaches into the very spaces where life is most vulnerable. You're still in that nursery, but now the air itself feels different. That sweet, almond-like scent you noticed before is more pronounced, heavier, almost humid, as if the very walls are exhaling it. It clings to the back of your throat, a peculiar sweetness that quickly becomes cloying. You take a deeper breath, and a faint irritation pricks at your nostrils, a subtle chemical tang beneath the perfume. The overwhelming emerald green of the wallpaper no longer seems merely vibrant, it feels alive, actively contributing to the atmosphere. You run a hand over the patterned surface, and a fine, almost imperceptible powdery residue comes away on your fingertips. It's the same vivid green you've seen before, but here, in this enclosed space, it feels less like a decorative choice and more like a palpable presence. You notice tiny, dried streaks, a pale greenish yellow, running down the wall in places, particularly where condensation might have formed or where little hands might have pressed against the paper. The small wooden blocks still scattered on the rug catch your eye again. You pick one up, a brilliant green cube, and feel its smoothness, almost slick to the touch. And yes, those tiny teeth marks are still visible along one edge. You instinctively bring it closer, catching that same faint, unsettling almond aroma directly from the painted wood. It makes you wonder about small mouths, about innocent curiosity, about everything a child might absorb from their immediate world. The crib stands silent, but the pillow within it has a faint, unnatural green tinge, not just a stain, but as if the fibers themselves have absorbed the color and something more. You lean over it, noticing the air here feels particularly still, almost stagnant. The quietness of the room, once peaceful, now feels weighty, filled with an unseen presence. This isn't just about dust. It feels like an invisible vapor, a silent miasma permeating every fiber, every breath taken in this verdant sanctuary. You can almost feel the dampness clinging to the textiles, the way the green pigment from the walls might transfer with the lightest touch, a constant, insidious seepage. This beautiful, perfect green, chosen for its vibrancy, for its fashionable appeal, has transformed this child's haven into something far more complex, a beautiful cage. It makes you realize how the quietest dangers, those hidden within the things we cherish most, can be the most potent, slowly, imperceptibly stealing moments of health and vitality, all in the name of a flawless aesthetic. You find yourself in the quiet solitude of your private study. The heavy velvet curtains are drawn, muffling the distant sounds of the city, and the only illumination comes from a single gas lamp on your mahogany desk, casting long, shifting shadows around the room. The air here is thick with the scent of old leather-bound books and stale pipe tobacco, but beneath it a peculiar, almost chalky dryness has settled at the back of your throat. You feel it, a persistent, almost metallic tang that lingers. Your hand reaches for a small, exquisitely decorated silver tin, nestled discreetly among the papers and quills on your desk. It feels cool to the touch, its polished surface reflecting the flickering gaslight. You lift the lid and instantly a faint, almost sweet almond aroma rises, delicate yet distinct. Inside, resting on a bed of fine tissue paper, are several tiny, translucent wafers. They're no bigger than your thumbnail, an ethereal ivory color, and seem almost too fragile to touch. You carefully extract one, holding it between your thumb and forefinger. It's incredibly lightweight, almost powdery, like a dried petal. You bring it closer, noting its faint, clean scent again, that curious blend of sweetness and something less definable, almost mineral. Then, with a calculated motion, you place it on your tongue. It dissolves almost immediately, melting into a fleeting sweetness that quickly gives way to a persistent, subtly bitter, metallic aftertaste that settles firmly on your palate. A strange dryness spreads, making you instinctively swallow, a slight catch in your throat. You feel a peculiar warmth, a subtle flush, spread through your body, followed by a faint tingling sensation in your fingers. You turn towards the polished silver mirror that hangs above the mantelpiece, scrutinizing your reflection in the dim light. The complexion that might have looked a touch sallow or too ruddy now appears remarkably clearer, a subtle, almost translucent pallor. The dullness seems to have lifted, replaced by a quiet porcelain-like sheen. There's a certain brightness in your eyes, a deceptive clarity. It's the desired effect, the quiet triumph of a well-kept secret. The wafer has done its work, offering its silent promise of perfection. But as you gaze at this refined image, a flicker of unease passes through you. This pursuit of an ideal, this subtle alchemy, asks for a quiet compromise. You wonder what hidden ledger keeps account of such meticulous maintenance, and what unspoken price is truly paid for this flawless, fleeting illusion of beauty. Days turn into weeks, and that small, translucent wafer becomes a familiar ritual, a quiet companion in your quest for that flawless complexion. The initial flush, that fleeting warmth, is still there, but now it's accompanied by a growing, insistent dryness in your mouth. It feels perpetually parched, as if a fine desert dust has settled on your tongue, refusing to be quenched no matter how much water you sip. That faint, metallic aftertaste, once a subtle nuance, has intensified, becoming a constant, unwelcome resident on your palate, a dull, coppery tang that never quite fades. You find yourself rubbing your fingers against your temples, not out of fatigue, but because a strange, prickling sensation has taken root there, a subtle itch that won't quite be scratched. Your skin, though still possessing that desired pallor, now feels unnervingly taut, almost brittle, as if stretched too thin over your bones. When you catch your reflection in the mirror, the porcelain-like clarity is still present, yes, but your eyes hold a faint, almost glassy sheen, and the delicate skin beneath them seems thinner, more prone to faint purple shadows. As you brush your hair in the mornings, you notice more strands than usual clinging to the bristles, dark coils that seem to have lost their luster, becoming strangely dull, almost lifeless. Your nails, once strong and smooth, have begun to show faint transverse ridges, and occasionally a small brittle chip will break off unexpectedly as you go about your day. A general fatigue, a heavy languor has also settled deep within your bones, an inexplicable tiredness that no amount of rest seems to alleviate. You feel a constant, low thrum of discomfort in your stomach, a quiet churning that is neither hunger nor outright pain, but an unsettling presence. You ignore these whispers from your body, these subtle protests. They are minor inconveniences, surely easily overshadowed by the compliments you receive, the admiring glances from acquaintances at social gatherings, the quiet satisfaction of presenting such a refined image to the world. Vanity, after all, demands a certain stoicism, doesn't it? You convince yourself it is simply the price of maintaining such an exacting standard of beauty in this demanding age. Yet as you reach for the silver tin once more, a fleeting shiver runs through you. This pursuit of perfection, this quiet alchemy, has begun to etch its mark not just on your outward appearance, but on the very fabric of your being. You wonder if, beneath the veneer of this flawless facade, something essential, something vital, is slowly, silently corroding away, sacrificed at the altar of an ideal. The true cost, it seems, is far more insidious and personal than any currency. The air is thick with joyous chatter, the excited murmur of dozens of guests, and the clink of champagne glasses. You're swept into a grand reception room filled with music and laughter, the kind of vibrant chaos that only a wedding celebration can truly create. Amidst the swirling silks and the proud smiles, your gaze is inevitably drawn to the centerpiece, the wedding cake. It dominates the room, a towering, pristine white confection, multi-tiered and impossibly elaborate. It smells wonderfully sweet, a rich aroma of vanilla, almond and delicate rosewater that makes your mouth water. But amongst the cascades of white icing and sugared pearls you spot it. Dozens of tiny, intricately crafted leaves, trailing vines in that familiar, vivid emerald green. They cling to the sides of each tier, climb towards the frosted peak, a startling splash of color against the bridal white. They glisten under the gaslight, almost wet as if freshly plucked. It's the same arresting green, the same intense hue you've encountered before, now adorning a symbol of purity and new beginnings. The bride and groom approach, their hands clasped, a picture of bliss. A hushed anticipation falls over the guests as they prepare to cut the first slice. You watch as a sharp silver knife glides through the soft cake, revealing layers of sponge and cream. Soon, a delicate slice, complete with one of those perfectly sculpted green leaves, is offered to you. You take it, the plate cool against your gloved hand. The cake is soft, yielding, and the first bite is pure delight, a burst of sweetness, rich and comforting. Then your teeth meet the sugared leaf. It's surprisingly firm with a faint crystalline crunch. The initial sugary flavor quickly gives way, though, to something else. A subtle yet unmistakable metallic tang blossoms on your tongue, mingling with the lingering sweetness, creating a peculiar, almost contradictory taste. It's faint, not unpleasant enough to make you recoil, but it's there, sharp and persistent. You swallow, the strange aftertaste lingering. You look down at the delicate green decoration on your plate, then back at the gleaming cake, still adorned with its verdant foliage. Everyone around you is eating, smiling, oblivious to the quiet dissonance. The sweetness of the celebration, the promise of perfection, is so readily consumed. But you now feel a chilling awareness of the hidden ingredient, the silent cost folded into such exquisite beauty. How many pleasures, you wonder, do we unknowingly consume, trusting in their outward perfection, without ever truly understanding the hidden truths they carry? You're still amidst the wedding festivities, the sweet aroma of cake and flowers now strangely clashing with that persistent, bitter metallic tang in your mouth. It hasn't faded, in fact it feels sharper, leaving your tongue dry and irritated. A subtle unease begins to bloom in your stomach, a gentle churning distinct from mere fullness. The celebratory chatter around you now seems too loud, the music too insistent. You try to focus on the joyous faces, the dancing couples, but your gaze keeps snagging on small details. You notice a young woman, her face flushed, discreetly pressing a hand to her abdomen. Her laughter, once bright, ends in an involuntary gasp. A distinguished gentleman, usually composed, excuses himself abruptly, his complexion noticeably paler even in the soft light. A wave of nausea washes over you, sudden and unwelcome. You grasp the edge of a nearby table, steadying yourself. The room, for a moment, seems to spin. A dull ache begins to throb behind your eyes. You glance at your plate, still holding a crumb of cake and the remnants of that vivid green sugared leaf. It no longer looks inviting. Instead, it seems almost malevolent, its bright color now a warning rather than a delight. You observe the discarded plates on a nearby trolley, many still bearing those decorative green leaves, some half-eaten. It's a quiet testament to shared indulgence. The air is still filled with the scent of sugar and joy, but for you, it's now laced with something far more unsettling. This grand feast, meant to signify a hopeful future, now feels shadowed by a hidden blight. It makes you wonder about the invisible threads that connect beauty to danger, and how easily a shared pleasure can become a shared affliction, all for the sake of an alluring, deceptive perfection. You're standing in a dimly lit scullery, a space that smells of damp stone, stale cooking, and a faint, acrid sourness. The air is cold, carrying a subtle draft from a poorly fitted window. Your gaze is drawn to a small wooden cupboard, its paint peeling, tucked away in a shadowed corner. It's here, amidst a jumble of dusty cleaning rags and half-empty jars of preserves, that a small, unassuming packet lies. It's just a paper packet, no bigger than your palm, plain and functional, with only a crudely printed label. Yet there's an immediate, almost instinctive sense of caution that pricks at you as you look at it. There's no bright color here, none of the vibrant greens you've seen before. This is a muted, almost dull white packet with a stark black typeface. You can almost feel the rough, unbleached paper against your fingertips. A woman, her hair slightly disheveled, her face drawn with a quiet weariness, moves about the scullery with a practiced efficiency. Her hands, red and chapped from work, reach for a chipped enamel basin. You watch her carefully. She doesn't look directly at the packet, yet her movements betray a subtle awareness of its presence, a fleeting glance towards the cupboard, a momentary stiffness in her posture as she passes it. It's a silent acknowledgement of something powerful, something that holds a certain grim utility. The sounds of her chores are monotonous, the scrape of a pot, the slosh of water. But beneath it you perceive a deeper silence, a weight of unspoken thoughts. Her gaze, when it settles on her own reflection in the scullery's grimy window pane, is devoid of that outward confidence, that performance of perfection you've witnessed in other settings. Here there's just a raw, unvarnished weariness. The packet remains, a quiet, potent presence in the corner. You sense the unspoken narratives it holds, the desperate measures, the hidden burdens. It's a stark contrast to the outward display of elegance and beauty you've encountered. This small, unadorned package, seemingly innocuous, represents a different kind of perfection, one sought not for beauty, but for control, for an end to a struggle, perhaps even for a final, desperate quiet. The cold air of the scullery seems to bite a little sharper, and you realize how the quietest objects can hold the most profound, and often tragic, stories of human desperation. The cold air of the scullery still bites, but now it carries a new sharpness, a dry, almost acrid smell that makes your nose twitch. The woman, her shoulders still slumped with weary resignation, moves with a sudden, deliberate purpose. Her gaze, no longer simply glancing, fixes on that plain paper packet in the cupboard. You watch as her chapped fingers reach for it, not with hesitation, but with a quiet, hardened resolve. She pulls it out, the dull white paper rustling faintly in the quiet room. Her thumb traces the rough printed label, no flowery script, just stark utilitarian words describing its purpose. Then with a slow, almost mechanical movement, she tears open one corner of the packet. Instantly, a fine, colorless powder is revealed, shimmering faintly in the weak light filtering through the window. It has no discernible smell to you, no immediate sensory alarm, only that lingering dryness in the air that seems to deepen. Her eyes, shadowed and tired, briefly flick from the powder to the doorway, as if expecting someone or perhaps just imagining. There's a tightness around her mouth, a subtle clenching of her jaw. You perceive a raw, desperate calculation in her stillness, a moment suspended between quiet endurance and irrevocable action. Her hand, holding the open packet, hovers over a small, chipped bowl on the preparation surface. You see her hesitate, a muscle twitching in her cheek, then with a deep, almost imperceptible sigh, a tiny measure of the powder falls soundlessly into the bowl. She glances at the door again, a fleeting, almost fearful look, before quickly refolding the packet and tucking it back into the shadowy cupboard. The bowl remains, its contents a potent, silent secret. The atmosphere in the scullery has shifted. It's no longer just cold, but heavy with an unspoken choice. You realize the thinness of the line between what is deemed a pest and what becomes an intolerable burden. In a world demanding rigid control, where every aspect of life is carefully contained, some solutions, however dark, might seem the only path to a different kind of perfection, a twisted form of peace. How desperately must one yearn for control, for an end, to turn such a tool to such a devastating, quiet purpose? The choices we make in the suffocating quiet of desperation echo far beyond the confines of a dim scullery. You step into the doctor's consulting room, and a potent, familiar smell assaults your senses, a sharp, clean scent of carbolic acid and stale liniment, mingled with the faint, metallic tang of old instruments. The air is cool, almost sterile, a stark contrast to the stifling warmth you've grown accustomed to. You sink into a heavy leather armchair, its cushioning surprisingly firm, and feel the worn texture of the armrests beneath your gloved hands. Before you, the doctor sits at his imposing mahogany desk. He's a man whose usual confidence seems, for once, subtly shaken. His brow is furrowed, a deep line etched between his eyes, and his fingers tap a rhythmic, almost nervous tattoo against the polished wood. He glances from you to a medical chart, then back to you, his expression a curious blend of intense concentration and genuine perplexity. He gestures for you to extend your hand, and you do, feeling his cool, professional touch as he examines your fingernails, pressing lightly. He then observes your eyes, lifting your eyelid gently, his gaze lingering on the delicate skin beneath. You feel a strange sense of detachment as he probes and observes, as if your own body has become an enigma even to you. You feel the persistent dryness in your mouth, that metallic aftertaste still clinging stubbornly to your palate, and the low, dull ache that has become a constant companion in your abdomen. You're aware of the slight tremble in your hand, the unusual thinness of your hair, sensations that have become alarmingly normalized in your daily life. The doctor murmurs to himself, a low, indistinct sound, and picks up his stethoscope. He presses the cold disc against your chest, then your back, listening intently to the muffled thrum of your heart, the faint whoosh of your breath. His movements are precise, methodical, yet you sense a rising frustration in his slight stiffening, in the almost imperceptible shake of his head. He asks a series of questions, his voice calm but with an underlying edge of urgency, trying to piece together a puzzle that refuses to cohere. You watch him, this man of science, grappling with something he cannot immediately classify. His gaze sweeps over your pale complexion, lingers on the subtle discoloration around your eyes, the faint lines of fatigue that even your finest cosmetics can no longer entirely conceal. He shakes his head again, a quiet, almost defeated gesture. There is no fever, no obvious inflammation, no clear ailment that fits neatly into his known diagnoses. He turns a page on the chart, then closes it with a soft thud, a sound that echoes the quiet uncertainty in the room. The silence that follows is heavy, filled with the unspoken weight of his bewilderment. You feel a chill deeper than the room's temperature spreading through you. When the expert cannot name the affliction, when the symptoms defy explanation, where does one turn? It makes you realize how vulnerable we are, how utterly exposed, when the carefully constructed order of understanding breaks down, and the true cost of perfection remains an insidious, baffling secret, slowly, quietly, consuming from within. You step through a heavy oak door, and a sharp, almost acrid smell immediately stings your nostrils, a potent mix of carbolic acid, ammonia, and something metallic, almost burnt. The air is surprisingly cool, circulating around a stark, functional room bathed in the harsh, unforgiving glare of a newly installed electric arc lamp. It hums with a faint, insistent buzz, casting a chilling, pure white light that seems to strip away all illusions, all decorative flourishes. You observe a man not in a physician's frock coat, but in a simple, practical laboratory apron, bent over a workbench cluttered with glass vials, retorts, and gleaming brass instruments. His movements are precise, almost ritualistic, utterly devoid of the doctor's bewildered uncertainty. He gently places a small, damp sample, a snippet of green fabric perhaps, or a few strands of dull hair, into a porcelain crucible. You hear the faint hiss as he carefully applies a flame from a spirit lamp beneath it. Smoke, thin and grey, rises, carrying with it a faint, cloying sweetness like burnt almonds that you recognize with a chilling familiarity. He then transfers the ash into a test tube, adds a clear liquid from a labeled bottle, and gently shakes it. Your gaze is fixed, compelled by the quiet intensity of his focus. He holds the tube up to the piercing electric light, tilting it, then adds a few more drops of another reagent, and then you see it. Slowly, almost magically, a vibrant, unmistakable emerald green precipitate begins to form at the bottom of the tube. It grows, thickening, solidifying, mirroring precisely the colors that have haunted your journey: the ballroom glow, the workshop dust, the nursery walls, the cake's sugared leaves. It's no longer an aesthetic choice, a decorative flourish. Here, under this stark, unyielding light, it is evidence. The man, his face illuminated by the green glow in the test tube, makes a terse note in a leather-bound ledger. He doesn't look up, but his meticulous action speaks volumes. This is not about guessing, not about baffling symptoms. This is about isolating, reacting, proving. You feel a profound shift in the air, a sense of quiet revelation. This new science, methodical and unfeeling, has found a way to unveil the invisible, to give a tangible form to the hidden dangers. The perfect aesthetic, once so elusive and desirable, is now exposed, its true, insidious nature laid bare by the relentless logic of chemistry. It makes you wonder, what other silent truths, what other hidden prices will this cold, clear light of scientific inquiry ultimately expose? You push open a heavy, creaking wooden door, and a peculiar blend of smells immediately washes over you. There's the musty scent of old animal hides, a sharp, almost chemical tang of something medicinal, and a dry, lingering dustiness that makes your throat feel a little raw. You've just stepped into a taxidermist's workshop, a dimly lit cavern where life and stillness exist in an unsettling harmony. The room is a chaotic tableau of impending creation and eerie preservation. Along the walls, glass-eyed creatures stare out from dusty display cases. A stoic owl poised for flight, a snarling fox caught mid-pounce, songbirds frozen forever in mid-trill. These are figures of arrested motion, beautiful yet profoundly unsettling in their stillness. Around you, workbenches groan under the weight of tools, scalpels, wires, glass eyes glinting from velvet trays, alongside partially finished projects. A deer's head, stripped bare, waits patiently for its new form. A heap of iridescent pheasant feathers lies ready for meticulous arrangement. Your gaze is drawn to a large, chipped porcelain basin on one of the tables. Within it, a thick, white, unctuous substance sits, like a block of ancient, hardened lard. It has a faint, almost sweet almond scent, surprisingly pleasant, yet underscored by that chemical sharpness that seems to permeate the very fabric of the room. This, you realize, is the preserving soap. You can almost feel its dense, slightly greasy texture, its promise of permanence. You watch as a man, his hands calloused and stained, meticulously works on a small bird. He takes a chunk of the soap, rubbing it with deliberate care onto the underside of the prepared skin, working it into every fold and crevice. The soap seems to melt slightly under his touch, absorbing into the material, imparting its strange, sweet chemical essence. It's a painstaking process, a battle against the inevitable decay, an effort to coax life back into something inherently lifeless. Each stroke, each application, is an act of defiance against nature's relentless progress. The bird, once vibrant, now takes on a strange, almost unsettling sheen from the treatment, its colors appearing unnaturally vivid, its form unnaturally perfect. The room is silent, save for the occasional scrape of a tool or the rustle of feathers. The air feels heavy with the promise of immortality, a strange magic that halts time. Yet, as you observe the man's concentration, the meticulous care with which he applies this preserving agent, you feel a deep unease. This desire to conquer decay, to achieve an unchanging, ideal form, comes at a cost. What unseen, potent ingredients, you wonder, are truly at work in that seemingly innocuous soap? What unseen battles are waged within the very cells of these creatures to maintain this illusion of eternal beauty? It makes you ponder the lengths humanity will go to preserve an image, to hold onto perfection, even when that perfection is entirely artificial, wresting control from the relentless grip of time and decay. The silence of these preserved forms speaks volumes about the human yearning for permanence and the often unseen price paid for it. The air in the taxidermist's workshop, once thick with the scent of raw hide and preserving soap, now feels strangely dry, almost brittle. A fine, almost invisible dust hangs perpetually, catching the sparse light that filters through the grimy windows, making the beams shimmer with a faint, iridescent haze. You can feel it on your lips, a subtle, powdery grit, and it makes you instinctively clear your throat, a dry, rasping sound. You glance back at the meticulously preserved creatures in their display cases. The owl's feathers still possess their soft, downy look. The fox's fur seems luxuriant, yet on closer inspection you notice a delicate film, a subtle, almost imperceptible sheen that coats their surfaces. It's the residue of the preserving agent, the chemical that holds decay at bay. It doesn't glisten so much as it simply is there, a constant, silent presence, a testament to the fragile immortality they embody. The taxidermist himself, still bent over his workbench, appears to have absorbed some of this pervasive dust. His dark hair is flecked with greyish-white, his eyebrows dusted, and a faint, powdery film seems to have settled on his spectacles. His movements are slower now, more deliberate, and you hear a dry, hacking cough escape his lips, quickly muffled by a handkerchief he pulls from his pocket. His hands, still stained from the work, sometimes twitch involuntarily, a subtle tremor that he tries to hide by gripping a tool tighter. He rubs at his eyes, leaving faint, dry smudges. That sweet almond scent still lingers, but now it feels less pleasant, more chemical, a constant presence that never quite dissipates. It clings to your clothes, to the very fabric of the air. This place, once seeming to halt time, now feels like a slow, deliberate consumption. The beautiful stillness of the creatures, their seemingly perfect forms, belies the cost not only of their creation, but also of their ongoing maintenance. You realize that this fight against decay, this pursuit of an everlasting image, quietly demands a persistent, invisible tribute, absorbed by those who choose to wield such potent powers. A wave of warmth washes over you as you step into the confectioner's quiet back room. The air is a rich tapestry of vanilla, melted sugar, and a faint, powdery sweetness, almost cloying, that makes your palate ache with anticipation. Gaslight filtered through frosted glass bathes the scene in a soft, golden glow, illuminating countless small, intricate creations laid out on parchment paper across a long wooden table. A woman, her spectacles perched on her nose, bends close to the work, her hands moving with an almost mesmerizing precision. She's meticulously decorating tiny sugar flowers, no bigger than your fingernail, each delicate petal a testament to an almost obsessive patience. Her tools are impossibly fine, delicate brushes, tiny spatulas, and an array of small, open pots holding liquid colors. The room hums with her quiet concentration, the only sounds the soft tap of a brush against sugar, the occasional gentle sigh. Your eye catches a particular ceramic pot, nestled amongst the vibrant blues and soft pinks. It holds a liquid so intensely green, so luminous, it seems to drink the very gaslight. It's that familiar, breathtaking emerald, the same shade you've seen dominating ballrooms and nursery walls. She dips a minute brush into it, the tip emerging dripping with the vivid pigment. With an expert, almost reverent hand, she touches it to a tiny sugar leaf, and the color blossoms, startlingly real against the pristine white sugar paste. It gleams, almost iridescent, a perfect mimicry of nature's most alluring shade. You watch the green seep into the crystalline structure, knowing the insidious history of such a vibrant hue. The confectioner occasionally wipes her brow with the back of a sugar-dusted hand. You notice a tremor, almost imperceptible in her precise movements, or perhaps her skin looks a touch too pale beneath the flowery dust that clings to her lashes. Her lips, though set in concentration, seem unusually dry. The sweetness of the air is now subtly laced with a familiar, faint chemical tang, almost like almonds. It's a dance of beauty and peril, a testament to the lengths one goes to achieve an ideal, even in something as ephemeral as a sugared decoration. You consider how easily the most enchanting artistry can become a vessel for hidden dangers, transforming innocent delights into something far more treacherous. The pursuit of perfection, it seems, quietly demands a silent sacrifice, often from those whose hands craft its illusion. You're still in that confectioner's back room, but the air has taken on a peculiar shift. The initial wave of sweet vanilla and rich almond now feels almost cloying, heavy, with a distinct, unsettling undertone. That subtle chemical tang, like almonds that you noticed earlier, has sharpened, becoming more insistent, clinging to the back of your throat. It feels like a dry film settling on your tongue, despite the imagined sweetness. You observe the finished sugar flowers and delicate green leaves, now piled high, ready for collection. They glisten under the gaslight, pristine and vibrant, a testament to perfect artistry. The confectioner, still at her workbench, meticulously places the last green leaf on a miniature sugar rose. Her movements, though still precise, now seem slightly labored. You notice her take a slow, deep breath, then a faint, dry cough escapes her. She rubs at her temples, her eyes briefly closing, a flash of profound weariness crossing her face before she straightens, her professional composure returning. As you look at the vibrant green decorations, their beauty, once so captivating, now feels almost menacing. You can almost taste the faint bitterness that hides beneath their sugary sheen, a silent echo of the chemical tang in the air. This isn't just about the scent of almonds anymore, it's about a deeper, more insidious taste, one that hints at hidden elements in the vivid pigment itself. You notice her hands again, dusted with icing sugar and a faint, almost indelible green. She uses them to brush a stray strand of hair from her face, and for a moment you imagine the tiny, unseen particles transferring, becoming part of her. The unwavering commitment to this flawless aesthetic, this dazzling deception, becomes palpable. The sweet, innocent creations destined for celebratory tables carry an unspoken story within their vibrant hues. You feel a prickle of discomfort, a dryness in your mouth that no amount of imagined sweetness can assuage. This room, filled with such tempting beauty, now feels charged with a silent, unseen tension. It's a powerful reminder of how easily the pursuit of aesthetic perfection can blind us, causing us to overlook the quiet, enduring cost hidden beneath the dazzling surface. The bitter taste of deception, it seems, can linger long after the sweetness has faded. You're sitting in a cramped, quiet sitting room, the heavy damask curtains drawn against the grey afternoon light. The air feels close, thick with the scent of old potpourri and furniture polish, but it's the wafting aroma of freshly brewed tea that truly fills your senses now, a comforting, familiar warmth that promises respite from the outside world. Yet beneath that warmth, you catch a faint, almost imperceptible metallic tang, a fleeting bitterness that seems to lurk at the edges of the sweet steam. A woman moves slowly before you, her back to a flickering gas fire. Her hands, though neat, tremble slightly as she lifts a delicate porcelain teapot, pouring the amber liquid into a fine china cup. The clink of the saucer as she sets it down is surprisingly loud in the hushed room. She adds a careful measure of milk, then 2 lumps of sugar, stirring with a quiet, persistent jingle of the spoon against the cup's rim. Her movements are deliberate, almost ritualistic, yet you sense a heavy weight in each action, a quiet exhaustion etched into the slump of her shoulders. She turns, offering you the cup. Her gaze, when it meets yours, is fleeting, almost evasive. Her eyes, shadowed by a quiet weariness, hold a flicker of something unreadable, perhaps a plea, perhaps a profound resignation. Her lips are pressed into a thin, almost brittle smile, one that doesn't quite reach her eyes. You reach out, your fingers closing around the warm porcelain. The heat seeps into your palm, a comforting sensation, but the subtle, unfamiliar metallic scent seems to rise with the steam from the tea itself. You lift the cup to your lips, the sweetness of the sugar immediately coating your tongue. But then, as you swallow, that bitter, metallic aftertaste blossoms, sharp and insistent, far stronger than before. It settles on your palate, a harsh counterpoint to the sweetness, leaving your mouth dry, strangely irritated. You glance at the woman still standing by the hearth, her gaze now fixed on the swirling patterns in her own cup, her expression unreadable. The warmth of the tea feels deceptive, a momentary comfort that masks a deeper chill. You swallow again, a noticeable catch in your throat. This quiet domestic scene, this simple cup of tea, is not just about sustenance or tradition. It's steeped in an unseen current, a silent story of burden and desperation. What unspoken choices, you wonder, are hidden beneath the comforting rituals of daily life, and what bitter price is exacted for a moment of quiet, desperate control. The most profound struggles, it seems, often play out in the most ordinary, intimate settings. The heavy, cloying sweetness that hits you as you step into the small, ill-lit scullery is unmistakable. It's the sickly sweet scent of molasses and dead insects, mingled with the faint, almost metallic tang you've come to associate with something far more sinister. Your stomach clenches instinctively. A single, grimy window barely cuts through the gloom, casting a weak, grey light onto the scene. Before you, the woman from earlier, her face still etched with that profound weariness, is hunched over a cracked porcelain basin. Her hands, red and chafed, are plunged into cloudy water. Your gaze is drawn to what she's manipulating, a strip of flypaper not fresh and sticky, but sodden and dark, its surface a graveyard of tiny, desiccated flies, now softened by the liquid. It smells truly awful, a potent mix of decay and artificial sweetness with that sharp chemical undertone. You hear a quiet slosh as she works, her fingers meticulously, almost brutally, scraping the sticky, poisoned coating from the paper. Each movement is slow, deliberate, a quiet act of extraction. The water in the basin grows murkier, now a faint, yellowish-greenish tint, thick with the dissolved residue. You can almost feel the stickiness of the paper as it resists her efforts, the unpleasant sensation of the dead insects clinging to her fingertips. Her face is drawn, a muscle twitching in her jaw, but her eyes, when she glances up briefly, hold no remorse, only a grim, unwavering resolve. It's the look of someone driven to a desperate extreme, meticulously harvesting a deadly crop from the most mundane of sources. You notice the small, plain packet, similar to the one you saw earlier, now discarded on a nearby shelf, torn and empty. The rat poison perhaps was too obvious, too easily traced, but flypaper, who would ever suspect such an ordinary household item? She dips a small enamel cup into the murky water, scooping out a portion of the thickened liquid. It looks innocuous like diluted tea, yet you know the potent, unseen power it holds. The sweet, cloying smell of the flypaper, now intensified by the warm water, still permeates the air, a stark contrast to the grim purpose it serves. You feel a profound chill. This isn't just about poison, it's about the insidious resourcefulness of desperation, the twisted alchemy of turning an everyday object of pest control into an instrument of profound consequence. The inheritance here isn't gold or land, but the silent, deadly legacy hidden within the unsuspecting corners of a Victorian home, waiting to be extracted, consumed, and to change lives forever. It makes you wonder what other everyday objects, what other mundane sources hold such a dark and silent power, waiting for a desperate hand to unlock their hidden potential. You draw back the heavy curtain, expecting the familiar dimness of a gaslit evening. Instead, a peculiar light washes over you, bathing the small parlor in an unnerving, almost ethereal glow. It's green, intensely so, emanating from several slender candles flickering on the mantelpiece and side tables. The air, surprisingly, carries a faint, almost sickly sweet aroma, mingling with the heavy scent of burning beeswax and a curious, sharp metallic tang that makes the back of your throat tighten. It's a smell that promises atmosphere, yet hints at something far less benign. The flame itself on each candle is not quite yellow, but edged with a subtle shifting green, making the wax appear a deeper, almost malachite hue as it slowly drips down the sides. You feel the strange light on your skin. It's not warm but almost cool, making your hands appear unnaturally pale, almost sickly. Shadows dance across the walls, stretching and contracting like restless specters, distorting the familiar patterns of the wallpaper and turning the polished furniture into grotesque, shimmering forms. You watch the tiny, almost invisible plumes of smoke curling upwards from each wick, diffusing the green into the air you breathe. It's too faint to be truly seen, yet you feel its presence, a subtle dryness, a persistent irritation in your nasal passages. The quiet crackle of the wick seems amplified in the hushed room, each tiny spark a miniature release. You can almost feel the fine particles settling on the velvet upholstery, clinging to the heavy fringes of the lampshades. This is beauty, yes, a captivating, dramatic green that transforms the mundane into something magical, but it's a magic that feels deeply unsettling. This gorgeous color, so prized for its aesthetic appeal, now seems to actively permeate the air, becoming an unseen part of the very atmosphere. You wonder what exactly is being released with each flicker of that verdant flame, what invisible toll this hypnotic glow silently exacts from the air, and from those who breathe it in. This beautiful, almost ghostly light offers a profound peace, but at what hidden, slow cost? The air itself seems to hold a silent, insidious secret. You're still in that parlor, the air thick with the sickly sweet aroma of beeswax, but now that peculiar, sharp metallic tang has intensified. It's not just a faint scent anymore. It's a taste, a dry, almost chalky coating that settles firmly on your tongue, refusing to be dislodged by a swallow. The ghostly green light from the candles continues to flicker, bathing the room in its unnerving hue, but it's the invisible currents within that light that truly begin to prickle at your senses. Those tiny, almost unseen plumes of smoke, curling upwards from each verdant wick, seem to have multiplied, diffusing a fine, pervasive haze throughout the room. You can almost feel it settling on the delicate membranes of your nostrils, a subtle, persistent irritation that makes your nose itch. A persistent tickle begins deep in your throat, a dry rasping that makes you want to cough, but you suppress it, unwilling to break the quiet, almost hypnotic atmosphere. Each breath you take feels shallower, somehow less satisfying, as if the very air itself has become thinner, imbued with a strange, sweet heaviness. You observe the other guests, their faces painted in shades of ethereal green. You notice a woman across the room discreetly bringing a lace handkerchief to her nose, her eyes watering slightly, though she quickly composes herself. A gentleman, deep in conversation, repeatedly runs a hand through his hair, then rubs at his temple, a subtle frown creasing his brow. The polite murmur of conversation seems to grow fainter, more strained, as if everyone is unconsciously conserving their breath. A dull ache begins to throb at the back of your skull, a subtle pressure building behind your eyes. Your eyes themselves feel strangely dry, a faint burning sensation growing at the corners. That peculiar, almost cool light from the green candles now feels oppressive, a constant, silent presence that seems to press in on you, slowly drawing out the vibrancy from your own senses. This isn't just about admiring beauty, it's about enduring its unseen exhalations. The room, with its elegant furnishings and hushed conversations, now feels less like a comforting parlor and more like a beautifully adorned cage. This captivating, almost magical green, once so alluring, now feels insidious, a silent, pervasive adversary. You realize how easily we can be lulled by aesthetics, by the promise of atmosphere, only to discover the hidden corrosive toll that a truly perfect facade can exact. The unseen, it seems, can often be the most potent force, slowly, imperceptibly, draining the life from the very air we breathe. You step into a studio that immediately hits you with the heady, unmistakable scent of linseed oil and turpentine. It's a rich, almost intoxicating aroma, but beneath it, a sharp, almost metallic tang pricks at your nose, a subtle bitterness that makes your throat feel dry. Dust motes dance in the strong, clear light streaming from a tall, north-facing window, illuminating a glorious chaos of paint tubes, crumpled rags, and canvases leaning against every available surface. At the center of it all, a painter is deeply engrossed in their work. Their smock is daubed with a rainbow of colors, but one shade dominates their palette, that arresting, vivid emerald green. You watch as they meticulously grind a small mound of dry pigment on a stone slab, a fine powder rising with each deliberate stroke of the muller. The green is astonishing, luminous, unlike any natural hue, seeming to radiate an internal light that commands your eye. It's that perfect, haunting green you've seen before, now in its raw, potent form. They mix the powder with a few drops of oil, transforming it into a thick, jewel-like paste that catches the light like molten glass. The brush, a fine-tipped tool, dips into the lustrous pigment. With a steady hand, the artist applies it to a canvas depicting a lush, fantastical landscape. The green blossoms on the linen, vivid and alive, bringing an extraordinary depth and vibrancy to the painted foliage. It is undeniably a masterpiece of color, but as you observe, you notice small details. The painter's hands, though steady, are deeply stained with the color. The skin around their fingernails are permanent, faint green. They wipe a stray lock of hair from their forehead with the back of a wrist, and you see a subtle pallor to their skin, a transparency that seems almost unnatural in the stark light. A dry, rasping cough occasionally escapes them, quickly suppressed but persistent. You see them take a deep breath, and then a faint, almost imperceptible film of green dust seems to cling to their eyelashes. The silence in the studio is profound, broken only by the soft scrape of the brush, the occasional cough, and the distant sounds of the street. This perfect green, so desired, so essential to their art, is being meticulously absorbed, particle by particle, into the very being of its creator. You realize how the pursuit of an artistic ideal, the relentless drive for an impossible perfection, can demand a silent personal toll, a hidden payment extracted from the artist's own breath and blood for the sake of an enduring, captivating beauty. The heady scent of linseed oil and turpentine in the studio now feels suffocating, thick with a fine, almost imperceptible dust that seems to prickle at the back of your throat. That metallic tang, once a subtle background note, has become a constant, bitter resident on your tongue, refusing to be dislodged. Each breath you take feels shallower, caught by a persistent dryness that rattles in your chest, culminating in a harsher, more frequent cough that leaves you breathless, a sharp ache in your ribs. Your gaze is still fixed on the canvas, on the fantastical landscape blooming with that breathtaking emerald green. The color pulses, unnaturally vibrant, almost searing to your eyes, which feel gritty and dry, a faint blurring at the edges of your vision. Your hand, still clutching the brush, trembles more noticeably now, no longer a mere tremor but a deep, involuntary shake that fights against your will. You press the brush to the canvas, but the line falters, a slight tremor marring the otherwise perfect stroke. You wipe your brow with a paint-stained arm, noticing how your skin feels unnaturally taut, almost papery, and the pallor is now less a desirable aesthetic and more an alarming transparency. The sun streaming through the tall window, once a source of invigorating light, now feels like a relentless glare, intensifying a dull, persistent ache behind your eyes. Your stomach churns with a quiet, insistent nausea, a constant companion that saps your strength, leaving you weak, almost lightheaded. You feel a curious detachment from your own body, observing its slow rebellion while your mind still yearns for the perfection on the canvas. The vivid green of the paint, once a source of such inspiration, now feels like a silent, mocking presence, absorbing your vitality with each stroke. The brushes, once extensions of your will, now feel heavy, cumbersome. Each movement, each careful mixing of the pigment, is an act of sheer endurance. The masterpiece grows, breathtaking in its beauty, yet you feel yourself diminishing with every finished detail, every luminous leaf added to the painted scene. The irony is sharp, almost unbearable. You are crafting an enduring vision of life and vibrancy, even as life slowly drains from your own body, sacrificed for the sake of an impossible artistic ideal. This perfect green, once a symbol of creation, now feels like a silent, beautiful assassin claiming its master. You understand now that some perfections demand a price beyond measure, asking not just for toil, but for the very essence of your being, leaving behind only the cold, silent legacy of an art that ultimately triumphs over its creator. You step through the imposing wooden doors, and instantly a wave of suffocating heat washes over you, thick with the smell of damp wool, stale perspiration, and old, varnished wood. The air is stagnant, heavy with unspoken tension, and the collective breath of dozens of people crammed shoulder to shoulder on hard, uncomfortable benches. It presses in on you, making your lungs feel tight, each breath a conscious effort. The room itself is cavernous, yet feels impossibly small, its high ceilings lost in shadow, offering no respite from the oppressive atmosphere. The light that filters through the tall, grimy windows is a weak, sickly grey, barely illuminating the grim faces of the onlookers, their expressions a mixture of morbid curiosity and stern judgment. Every rustle of clothing, every hushed whisper, every shifting foot on the wooden floor seems amplified in the suffocating quiet, creating a constant, low hum of nervous energy. Your gaze is drawn to the dock, a stark, caged enclosure at the room's center. Within it stands a figure, their face unnaturally pale, almost translucent in the dim light. Their hands, clasped tightly before them, are subtly trembling, a flicker of raw fear or profound exhaustion visible in the slight tremor. You see their chest rise and fall with shallow, rapid breaths, betraying a desperation that no outward composure can entirely mask. Before the judge, a formidable figure in his dark robes, lies a collection of objects on a table draped in green baize. Your eyes snag on a vivid emerald shard of what looks like wallpaper, a small, vibrant piece of sugared cake decoration, and a tiny, almost doll-like artificial flower. Each item, once a symbol of beauty or domesticity, now gleams with an almost sinister light under the scrutiny, transformed into silent, damning witnesses. You feel a prickle of recognition, a shiver running down your spine as you connect these familiar, beautiful objects to the creeping dread that fills the room. The air thickens with the unspoken weight of accusation and the chilling prospect of consequence. The hushed murmurs around you are like the buzzing of trapped flies, a constant, low-level anxiety. You feel a tightness in your own stomach, a reflection of the profound unease that pervades this space. This isn't merely about guilt or innocence, it's about the devastating price of hidden truths, of perfection pursued at all costs, now laid bare under the unforgiving gaze of justice. The very atmosphere here seems to demand a reckoning, a final bitter payment for all the silent compromises. The courtroom's suffocating air stills completely, heavy with an expectant hush. Your eyes are fixed on a makeshift workbench, starkly lit by a single, focused gas jet. A stern-faced man in a crisp laboratory apron stands over it, his presence a stark contrast to the usual legal theatre. The faint, sharp tang of chemicals prickles your nose, an acrid promise of revelation. Before him, a gleaming glass retort connects to other intricate glassware, looking utterly alien in this hallowed chamber. A small, steady flame flickers beneath it, warming the primary vessel. With careful precision, the man introduces a small liquid sample, a few drops, meticulously measured, into the main chamber. A soft hiss, then tiny bubbles begin to form, rising slow and deliberate within the solution. A faint, acrid smell like bitter almonds now drifts through the hushed room, making a few spectators flinch almost imperceptibly. The gas generated then passes through a narrow glass tube directed towards a cool, polished surface held by a stand. Every eye in the room is glued to that small area of glass. You feel the collective intake of breath as, slowly, almost magically, a faint, silvery sheen begins to form. It darkens, solidifying into a distinct metallic mirror on the cool glass. This is no vibrant emerald, no deceptive beauty. It is the stark, undeniable grey silver of truth itself. A collective gasp ripples through the public gallery. The figure in the dock sways, their face a mask of dawning horror, all prior composure shattered. Jurors lean forward, their eyes wide with revelation, the scales of justice visibly tipping with this concrete, irrefutable evidence. This cold, irrefutable science has found its voice, cutting through every last rumor and suspicion. It doesn't guess or speculate, it simply shows. You realize that some truths, once rendered visible by the unforgiving light of scientific proof, can never again be hidden by the allure of perfection, no matter how beautiful or how carefully crafted. The price finally is revealed, stark and undeniable. You step into a bright open-plan living room, immediately greeted by the crisp scent of new furniture and a faint, almost clinical cleanliness. But beneath it, a subtle, almost metallic tang pricks at the back of your throat, strangely familiar. Your gaze instantly falls upon the floor-to-ceiling windows, draped in heavy, sumptuous velvet curtains. They are that inescapable, vibrant emerald green, a color so intense it seems to absorb and radiate light, almost glowing with an inner intensity even in the bright afternoon sun. You reach out, your fingers brushing against the rich fabric. It feels soft, luxurious, yet a faint, almost imperceptible dry film seems to cling to your fingertips. The pervasive green drapes cast an unnerving pallor across the sleek, modern sofa and the minimalist abstract artwork, making everything else in the carefully curated room appear subtly off-kilter, too cool, too perfect, as if stripped of its natural warmth. This isn't the flickering gaslight of a Victorian ballroom, but the insistent hue still feels like a powerful echo, a visual whisper from a past where beauty concealed deep dangers. It makes you wonder, in this supposedly enlightened age, how easily beauty can still blind us, how perfectly an aesthetic can hide something far more insidious. What unseen histories, what forgotten warnings still cling to colors, even within the reassuringly sterile walls of a modern home. You're still in that crisp, modern living room, the one with the statement green curtains. But now, that metallic tang in the air feels sharper, more insistent, catching at the back of your throat with a dry, almost bitter edge that makes you subtly clear your throat. It's not just a faint background note anymore, it's a palpable presence, mingling uncomfortably with the clean scent of polished surfaces and newly diffused air. The sumptuous green velvet curtains, once merely a beautiful aesthetic choice, now feel like a more substantial presence, a subtle weight, almost a pressure, in the atmosphere of the room. They hang heavy, dense with history and unspoken implication. As you draw closer, the strong, unyielding afternoon light slicing through the tall, floor-to-ceiling windows catches something in the air immediately around the fabric. It's a fine, almost invisible shimmer, a faint haze of dust motes dancing in the sunbeams, visibly thicker near the rich fabric. You can almost see tiny, almost imperceptible particles detaching themselves, swirling languidly upwards before slowly drifting back down. You instinctively reach out, not just to brush the velvet, but to feel the air itself, sensing the invisible currents. Your fingers catch a faint, powdery film, a barely perceptible residue that seems to lift from the dense pile with the slightest disturbance, leaving a faint, green-tinged stain on your skin. You run a hand over the perfectly polished surface of a nearby side table, sleek and minimalist, and there it is again, a light, almost ethereal greyish-green dust, undeniably present, forming a thin veneer even in this meticulously cleaned and sterile space. It smells subtly of almonds, a scent that now brings a shiver, no longer pleasant or nostalgic but deeply unsettling, a ghost of memory. You watch as a gentle gust of wind from an inadvertently open window makes the curtains stir, a graceful, almost hypnotic undulation of the heavy fabric. With each subtle movement, a tiny, almost imperceptible puff of this fine powder seems to rise, catching the harsh, unforgiving light like miniature, glittering particles before slowly settling back down onto the pristine surfaces, onto the very air you breathe, onto your clothes, your hair. It's an insidious, constant shedding, a quiet, almost domestic dispersal of something profoundly old and deeply dangerous, yet so beautifully masked. This green, so desired across centuries, is still silently at work. You find yourself clearing your throat again, a dry, persistent tickle at the back of it, a physical manifestation of an invisible burden. The modern efficiency, the sterile cleanliness of this home, designed for health and comfort, suddenly feels like a tragically fragile veneer. This beautiful, vibrant green, chosen for its aesthetic appeal in a contemporary setting, carries an echo of its past, a potent, insidious legacy. You realize that some dangers don't simply vanish with time or technological advancement. They shed silently, persistently, carried on the dust of history, capable of lingering, a subtle, uninvited guest in even our most perfectly constructed present. It makes you wonder how many layers of convenience and comfort we build, how many innovations we celebrate, unaware of the quiet, enduring ghosts that might still be settling with the dust around us, patiently waiting to be rediscovered, a chilling testament to the persistent price of perfection. You find yourself in a dimly lit chamber, perhaps a private study or a quiet bedchamber, the heavy curtains drawn against the harsh afternoon light. The air is still, carrying the faint scent of old lace and polished wood, but then a sharp, almost medicinal aroma cuts through it, something herbal, yet with a distinct, almost sweet undertone that prickles at your nostrils. It's the scent of remedy, of promise. Your hand reaches for a small, dark glass bottle on a nearby table, its label faded but still proclaiming it Fowler's Solution. It feels cool, smooth against your palm. With a decisive twist, you break the wax seal and pull out the cork, hearing a faint, satisfying pop. A thin, dark liquid gleams inside. You pour a careful, precise dose onto a silver spoon, the viscous fluid catching the light. It looks almost like a concentrated syrup, promising sweetness. You lift the spoon to your lips. The first taste is indeed sweet, a rich, almost treacly flavor that spreads across your tongue, quickly followed by a strange, fiery warmth that tingles deep in your throat. Then, inevitably, that familiar, subtly metallic tang asserts itself, a bitter, coppery aftertaste that stubbornly lingers, a quiet counterpoint to the initial sweetness. Almost instantly, a remarkable sensation washes over you. A peculiar clarity seems to sharpen your vision, making the room's details more vivid. A dull ache that had been thrumming behind your eyes seems to recede, replaced by a surprising lightness. Your mind feels suddenly quickened, the languor that had settled in your limbs momentarily banished. You feel a surge of energy, a borrowed vitality that makes your blood hum, as if a hidden spring has been suddenly unwound within you. The world, for a brief, deceptive moment, appears brighter, more manageable, infused with a renewed vigor. You close your eyes, savoring this fleeting surge of well-being, this miraculous, almost magical restoration. But even as the warmth spreads, that metallic bitterness on your tongue remains, a constant, quiet reminder. You reflect on the incredible allure of such a quick, potent remedy. How tempting it is to reach for such a powerful solution, to embrace a borrowed perfection, even when you know deep down that such swift transformations often carry a hidden, unacknowledged price. The instant cure, it seems, can often be the most insidious deception. That initial deceptive sweetness of Fowler's Solution is long gone, vanished, leaving only a raw, persistent bitterness on your tongue. It's a metallic tang that has become a constant companion, dry and searing, no matter how much water you try to swallow. Your throat feels perpetually parched, a dull, burning ache accompanying every breath. The brief surge of clarity you once felt has receded, replaced by a dense fog that dulls your thoughts, making concentration a monumental effort. Your skin, once admired for its porcelain pallor, now feels unnaturally thin, almost translucent, stretched taut over your cheekbones. A faint, yellowish tinge has begun to creep into the whites of your eyes, making them look perpetually jaundiced. Each morning, the brush pulls away more handfuls of hair, dull and brittle, leaving behind a scalp that feels tender and exposed. Your nails, once meticulously kept, are now ridged, fragile and prone to breaking at the slightest touch. The constant nausea you once suppressed now asserts itself with violent, uncontrollable spasms, leaving you weak and trembling. A deep, gnawing pain has taken root in your abdomen, a persistent, burning agony that makes it almost impossible to find a comfortable position. Your limbs, once lightened by the tonic, now feel impossibly heavy, a leaden weight dragging you down, making every step a Herculean effort. A strange, insistent tingling has begun in your fingers and toes, a creeping numbness that spreads insidiously, a constant, unsettling prickle beneath the surface of your skin. You stare at your reflection, no longer seeing the image of delicate perfection you once sought. Instead, a gaunt, wasted figure stares back, a hollowed-out version of yourself, etched with pain and exhaustion. The very cure that promised to perfect you has become the most insidious curse, slowly, relentlessly, dissolving your vitality piece by painful piece. This potent elixir, once a symbol of control and aspiration, has stripped you bare, leaving you to confront the devastating irony. You realize with a chilling certainty that the quest for an artificial ideal can utterly consume the very essence of life, leaving behind only the bitter, corroding truth of its immense, undeniable price. You step into the hushed quiet of a grand ancestral library. The air, thick with the comforting scent of aged leather and dry paper, carries an odd undertone, a faint, almost sweet metallic tang that pricks at your nostrils, strangely familiar. Your gaze drifts across towering shelves packed with centuries of knowledge, but then it snags. High up, nestled amongst the muted browns and faded reds, sits a book whose binding is a truly startling, almost luminous emerald green. It doesn't just reflect the weak gaslight, it seems to glow from within, an impossible, vivid hue for old leather. It's that haunting, perfect green you've seen before. You reach for it, pulling it carefully from its perch. The leather feels cool and surprisingly smooth beneath your fingertips, yet a fine, almost imperceptible powdery film comes away on your skin, a faint green residue clinging to your hand. You hold the book, its presence strangely potent. The green is not merely a color, it feels like a silent, deeply embedded presence, enduring, almost buzzing with a quiet energy. You open it, the pages rustling with the whisper of forgotten narratives, but your attention keeps returning to the cover, to its unwavering, vibrant hue. This book, a testament to knowledge, also quietly embodies a hidden cost, a perfection born of dangerous beauty. How long has it sat here, silently preserving its brilliance, and perhaps its subtle poison, a luminous lie waiting for an unwary touch? What enduring secrets lie within its very fabric, a silent testament to the true price of such captivating artistry? You're still holding that remarkably green-bound book in the quiet library. The fine, powdery film you felt earlier on your fingertips seems to cling more stubbornly now, a subtle grit that you can't quite brush away. You bring your hand closer, and that faint, sweet metallic tang, once a mere whisper in the air, now seems to emanate directly from the book itself, almost as if it's breathing out its own peculiar essence. It makes the back of your throat feel unpleasantly dry, a persistent tickle that demands a swallow. You carefully turn a page, then another, the aged paper rustling softly, carrying with it the ghost of a different, more familiar scent, old ink, faint parchment. But each time your fingers brush the luminous green cover, or even the rough edges of the dyed binding, you feel that imperceptible transfer, a subtle confirmation that the book is shedding its vibrant skin. You notice your eyes feel a little more gritty, a faint burning sensation at the corners, and an inexplicable headache begins to throb gently behind your temples. The sheer beauty of the green is undeniable, captivating, but now it feels like a deceptive veneer. This isn't just a book, it's a vessel silently holding its toxic beauty, a testament to a dangerous pursuit of perfection. You run your tongue over your teeth, tasting that metallic bitterness, imagining the tiny, invisible particles settling on your lips, carried by the very act of holding such a prized object. This book, meant to hold stories and knowledge, ironically tells a silent one of its own. It's a reminder that even in the pursuit of culture and aesthetic pleasure, there can be unseen, insidious prices. The stories held within its pages may be harmless, but the very object itself, so outwardly perfect, carries a lingering, unspoken threat. You realize how easily beauty, when unexamined, can become a silent, corrosive force, and how even the most revered objects can hold dangerous secrets within their very fabric, waiting to be rediscovered by an unwary touch. It makes you wonder what other beloved objects in our lives might be silently telling a similar, hidden tale. You step into a hushed, cool chamber, a scent of formal morning clinging to the air, lilies, old wood, and a faint, sharp chemical note that you now recognize with a morbid familiarity. The room is dim, lit by a single gas lamp that casts long, dancing shadows across polished mahogany and heavy velvet. Here, in this solemn space, the final acts of dignified farewell are performed. Your gaze falls upon a figure lying peacefully on a draped table, their features composed, their hands gently folded. There's a quiet, almost reverent stillness about them, a sense of having found a profound rest. You notice a slight, almost translucent pallor to their skin, a serenity that seems almost too perfect, too unblemished for one who has recently departed. Beside the table, an embalmer works with quiet, methodical precision. His hands are gloved, his face impassive, yet you sense a deep respect in his every movement. He holds a small, wide-mouthed glass jar. Inside, a thick white cream, almost like cold cream, gleams dully in the gaslight. It has a faint, almost sweet almond scent, surprisingly pleasant, mingling with the chemical tang of his other tools, yet it whispers of something more potent, something designed for an enduring, unyielding purpose. He dips his gloved fingers into the cream, scooping out a generous dollop. With the utmost gentleness, he begins to apply it to the deceased's face, meticulously working it into the skin, smoothing it across the brow, around the eyes, down the bridge of the nose. It's a careful, almost artistic process, designed to restore a semblance of life, to soften the harsh edges of mortality, to bring back a familiar, comforting image. The cream absorbs slowly, leaving behind a subtle, almost pearlescent sheen, a quiet testament to the care being taken. You watch as he works, his focus absolute, creating a final, tranquil tableau. The lines of distress, the ravages of illness, are subtly softened, replaced by an expression of serene repose. This is the ultimate act of preservation, a meticulous effort to hold back the relentless tide of decay, to offer a lasting vision of peace to grieving loved ones. But even in this tender, solemn act, you sense the powerful, unseen chemicals at work, the silent, potent ingredients in that innocuous-looking cream. This perfect, enduring serenity, you realize, comes at a profound, almost alchemical price, wresting control from nature's inevitable path. It makes you wonder about the universal human desire to preserve, to hold on to beauty and life, even in the face of absolute loss, and the lengths we will go to achieve that final, comforting illusion of perfection. You find yourself standing on damp, uneven ground, the air around you heavy with the smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. But beneath that natural, earthy scent, there's a faint, almost sickly sweet chemical tang that you've come to know, strangely persistent, a subtle whisper of artificiality. The sky above is a dull, uniform grey, casting a muted light over a sprawling cemetery, rows of weathered headstones standing like silent sentinels. The cold bites at your exposed skin, and the dampness seeps through the soles of your boots. Your gaze falls upon a patch of ground near an older grave. Here, the grass is not merely faded, it's gone, leaving behind bare, dark soil, strangely resistant to the encroaching weeds. Around its edges, a few blades of grass cling on, but they're not green and vibrant. Instead, they're a pale, sickly yellow, almost transparent, as if life has been slowly leached from them. You crouch down, the cold earth pressing against your knees through your trousers. You run your gloved hand over the soil, and it feels unusually firm, almost compacted, with a peculiar, almost waxy texture that seems to repel the very idea of natural growth. Further along, where the ground rises slightly, you spot patches of moss, an unnaturally vibrant emerald green clinging to the base of a crumbling stone. It's that exact, arresting shade you've encountered before, but here, in this setting of quiet decay, it feels out of place, almost jarring in its intensity, a subtle, almost eerie beacon. You touch it and it feels strangely brittle, almost artificial beneath your fingertips. It looks alive, but a deeper instinct tells you it's a false vitality, a color preserved by something beyond nature. You observe the silence, broken only by the distant caw of a crow. This isn't just about the quietude of the departed, it's about the profound stillness of the very earth, a subtle suppression of life. The soil, intended to cradle decay and foster new growth, seems to be holding on to something else entirely, something that resists the natural cycle. The embalmer's final gesture of peace, the desire for lasting serenity, has extended its reach far beyond the confines of the coffin, silently seeping into the living world. You realize that the pursuit of perfection, even in death, carries an enduring, far-reaching consequence. What was meant to preserve a single form has quietly, slowly begun to alter the very ground beneath our feet, a silent poisoning that transforms the earth itself. It makes you wonder about the unintended legacies we leave behind, the invisible costs that continue to spread, long after the need for outward perfection has passed, changing the very fabric of the world around us. You step into the stifling heat of a public lecture hall. The air hits you immediately, thick with the scent of old wood, damp coats, and a pervasive, dusty dryness that catches at the back of your throat. You feel the rough texture of a hard wooden bench as you settle amongst the hushed, shuffling crowd, the collective breath of dozens of people making the atmosphere heavy, almost oppressive. A distant clock chimes, its echo seeming to hang in the air, underscoring the expectant silence. At the front, bathed in the harsh, focused glare of a single gaslight, a man stands behind a simple lectern. He is not a man of grand gestures, but his voice, though calm, carries an insistent, almost brittle quality that cuts through the stagnant air. You can almost feel the strain in his throat, the effort it takes to project his words into the cavernous room. He holds up a swatch of fabric, a small, surprisingly dull piece of green material, and the color so familiar now seems muted, almost sickly, under the unflattering light. You watch as his eyes, earnest and alight with a quiet desperation, sweep across the audience. Most faces are impassive, some wear expressions of polite boredom, a few openly stifle yawns. A gentleman in the front row, his cravat perfectly tied, subtly glances at his pocket watch, a barely perceptible flicker of impatience. You hear the rustle of programs, the soft coughs, the shuffling of feet, each small sound a testament to the audience's waning attention. The speaker's hand trembles slightly as he gestures, not dramatically but with a deep-seated conviction. He points to the fabric, then to a diagram on a large chalk-smudged board, his movements precise, almost urgent. You perceive his struggle, a lonely battle against the tide of indifference, against the comfortable disbelief that clings to every corner of the room. He is speaking of hidden dangers, of beauty's dark cost, of insidious threats in plain sight, yet his message seems to bounce off the polished walls, absorbed by a profound unwillingness to truly hear. His voice, though unwavering, feels like a single solitary drumbeat against a vast silence. You sense the profound weight of the truth he carries, a truth that feels inconvenient, unwelcome. It makes you realize how stubbornly we cling to our illusions of perfection, how readily we dismiss the quiet crusader, preferring the comfort of ignorance over the unsettling clarity of a challenging, inconvenient reality. The price of perfection, it seems, is not only paid in poison, but also in the deafening silence of unheeded warnings. You're hurrying along a bustling London thoroughfare, the damp chill of a grey morning biting at your exposed skin, when a sudden shrill cry slices through the familiar din of carriage wheels and hawkers, shouts, "Extra, extra, read all about it." The arsenic waltz, danger in every home. The voice is raw, insistent, belonging to a grubby newsboy waving a crumpled sheet high above his head. A shiver, colder than the morning air, runs down your spine. You instinctively stop, your hand fumbling for a penny, compelled by the urgency in the boy's voice. The rough, smudged paper crackles as you snatch it from his hand. The ink is still wet, a faint, acrid smell mingling with the stale city air. Your eyes instantly leap to the bold block letters screaming across the page, "The Arsenic Waltz, Poison in Our Parlors." Beneath it, a chilling subtitle, "The Silent Killer in Our Homes." From wallpaper to confectionery, your breath catches in your throat. The very words seem to leap from the page, vibrating with an undeniable truth that you've felt, sensed, and tasted in the most unsettling ways. You read on, your gaze devouring the columns of print. Details tumble forth, accounts of elegant green wallpapers shedding their deadly pigment with every touch, tales of artificial flowers crafted with vibrant, toxic dyes, and the devastating truth behind the clear complexions achieved by a fashionable wafer. The sweet, tempting green of the wedding cake decorations, the insidious fumes from the cherished green candles, even the supposed tonic that offered a fleeting vitality, all laid bare, connected by the silent, omnipresent thread of arsenic. Around you, others have stopped too, their faces etched with a mirroring shock as they read their own copies. A collective gasp ripples through the small crowd. You see a woman clutch her throat, her eyes wide with dawning horror, perhaps remembering a nursery wall or a child's painted toy. A gentleman near you pales visibly, his hand instinctively going to his mouth, as if to ward off a taste he now dreads. Whispers erupt, frantic and disbelieving, then quickly morph into a chorus of fear and outrage. The quiet, insidious threat, once a subtle prickle, a personal unease, is now a public, undeniable terror. The beautiful, vibrant green, once a symbol of opulence and natural beauty, is suddenly stripped of its allure, exposed as a silent, pervasive murderer. You feel a profound sense of revelation, but also a deep, sickening dread. All those perfect surfaces, all those coveted aesthetics, all those fleeting moments of enhanced beauty, they were lies, carefully constructed veils over a devastating truth. The hidden cost of perfection, once a whisper, is now a deafening roar, reverberating through the very fabric of society, leaving everyone to question the unseen dangers lurking in the most ordinary corners of their lives. You step into the hushed, cool air of the museum's hidden archive, the scent of old paper and dust thick and comforting, yet carrying a faint, dry chemical tang that prickles your nose. Rows of meticulously organized shelves disappear into the gloom, stretching high towards a vaulted ceiling, holding countless forgotten fragments of history, each carefully catalogued and preserved. Your gloved hand reaches for a particularly dull, nondescript cardboard box, its edges softened by time, marked simply Victorian Domestic Artifacts Case 7, Shelf B. It feels surprisingly heavy, disproportionately so for its size. You carefully lift the lid, the cardboard rustling softly in the quiet. Within, nestled amongst layers of fragile tissue paper, lies a collection of seemingly innocuous objects, each a silent whisper from the past. A faded child's wooden toy, perhaps a small rocking horse or a simple block, its paint chipped and worn in places, yet a familiar vibrant emerald green still clings stubbornly to its wooden surface, startlingly bright against the muted brown of the wood. Beside it, a small, carefully folded scrap of patterned wallpaper, the intricate leaf and vine design surprisingly well preserved, its emerald hue intensely vivid even after decades of darkness. Then a delicate, stiff artificial flower, its silk petals a perfect, unblemished green, radiating an almost unnatural brilliance despite its age, still vibrant as if freshly made. You handle them with care, the smooth, cool surfaces beneath your gloved fingertips, a sense of gravitas emanating from each item. As you meticulously arrange them for detailed cataloguing, placing them gently onto a clean, white sheet of acid-free paper, a peculiar sensation begins. Your gloved fingers, despite the protective layer, start to tingle, a subtle, persistent itch that seems to burrow beneath the fabric. You instinctively rub your temple with the back of your hand, and a faint, almost imperceptible powdery residue comes away on your white glove, tinged with a color you've grown to associate with deceptive beauty, and now with a profound unease. The air in the archive, once merely dusty and historical, now feels subtly charged with a distinctive, almost sweet, almond-like aroma. It's too faint to confirm absolutely, yet too distinct and unsettling to ignore, a ghost of a scent you've encountered before, always accompanying that vivid green. You lean closer, examining each green object under a powerful magnifying glass. The worn paint on the child's toy reveals tiny, glittering crystalline flecks embedded within its pigment, catching the light like miniature jewels. The wallpaper's vibrant emerald pattern appears unnaturally thick, almost granular, the color not merely stained but deeply infused into the paper fibers. The silk petals of the artificial flower possess an unsettling, almost metallic sheen, a sheen that speaks of more than just artistry. A slow, dawning realization begins to solidify in your mind, a chilling connection forming between these disparate, seemingly harmless items. The profound silence of the archive, usually a source of peaceful contemplation, now feels heavy with unspoken histories, with secrets long buried beneath layers of time and dust, now patiently waiting for a discerning eye to uncover their enduring, unsettling truths. You glance at your hands again, feeling the persistent tingling. The faint green stain on your white gloves, once an accidental smudge, now feels like a tangible imprint, a silent accusation from the past. This isn't just a collection of aesthetically pleasing objects for display, it's a profound, tangible testament to a widespread tragic era. You're still there in the quiet hum of the museum archive, those seemingly innocuous Victorian artifacts spread before you on the clean, white sheet. But now, the faint chemical tang in the air feels sharper, no longer subtle, and that sweet, almond-like aroma is undeniably more distinct, clinging to the back of your throat with a dry, unsettling persistence. The tingling sensation in your gloved fingers, first a mere prickle, has intensified, becoming a low, insistent throb, a chilling reminder of what these beautiful objects contain. You lean in closer, your gaze drawn to the vibrant emerald wallpaper fragment. Under the harsh scrutiny of the magnifying lamp, you notice minute crystalline formations embedded within the pigment, glittering malevolently. You can almost see the tiny particles, dried and inert for decades, yet still possessing their potent, silent power, ready to be disturbed, to shed, to begin their insidious work anew. Your eye follows the intricate, intertwining vine pattern, once a source of domestic pride, now a chilling testament to hidden peril. You pick up the artificial flower again, its silk petals still perfectly formed, their green hue vibrant, unnervingly lifelike. You turn it over, feeling its stiff, almost brittle texture, and a fine, almost invisible dust drifts from its delicate folds, settling on the white paper below. It's a silent, almost ghostly exhalation from an object that has held its breath for over a century, still releasing its insidious secret. That familiar, almost metallic sheen you noted earlier on the petals now feels less artistic and more like a warning, a subtle glint of danger. Next, the child's wooden toy. You trace the worn, chipped paint on its surface, your finger catching on the faint, stubbornly vibrant green patches. Those tiny tooth marks, barely visible, are a poignant detail, conjuring an image of an innocent child unknowingly ingesting traces of poison with every curious gnaw. This seemingly harmless plaything intended for joy carries a devastating truth, a quiet act of betrayal hidden in its very color. The weight of this history presses down on you, making the archive feel less like a safe repository and more like a chamber filled with lingering echoes. The silence here, once comforting, now feels heavy, charged with the unacknowledged suffering these objects represent. These aren't just dusty relics, they are tangible threads connecting us to a past where beauty and death danced a perilous, unrecognized waltz. The sheer, vibrant perfection of these artifacts, so carefully preserved, now feels like a profound, tragic irony. You place them back into their box, the cardboard rustling softly, the metallic tang in the air slowly fading, but the knowledge, the feeling of their deadly resonance remains. This discovery isn't just an academic finding, it's a visceral understanding of how the desire for an ideal, for flawless aesthetics, can blind us to the most profound dangers. It makes you realize that history isn't just about dates and names, it's about the tangible, often toxic, legacy that permeates the very objects we touch, silently whispering its warnings across the centuries, daring us to finally listen. The price of perfection, you understand, reverberates through time, a constant, quiet hum beneath the surface of beauty. You find yourself in a space that feels both familiar and entirely new, stripped bare of specific detail, yet resonating with every sensation you've gathered. The air itself seems to hum with a subtle, insistent dryness, carrying a ghostly mix of elegant perfume, a faint trace of chemical almond, and that pervasive, almost metallic tang that has now become a silent companion. It's not a smell from a specific place, but rather the lingering essence of many places, many times, all rolled into one. Your vision is subtly tinged with a phantom green, an emerald glow that seems to exist just behind your eyes, an echo of ballrooms, nursery walls, and exquisite artwork. You feel a faint, persistent prickle at the back of your throat, a dryness on your tongue that no amount of imagined moisture can assuage. It's the phantom taste of perfection, a bitterness lingering long after the sweetness has faded. You instinctively brush your fingers together, almost expecting to find a fine, imperceptible dust or the sticky residue of a chemical, a quiet confirmation of what your senses now know. You recall the faces, the subtly trembling hands in the opulent ballrooms, the pale, fatigued eyes in the workshops, the brittle smiles in the doctor's office, the quiet desperation in the scullery. They were all linked, threads in a vast, invisible tapestry, each seeking an ideal, each unknowingly paying a profound price. The vibrant beauty, the pristine surfaces, the perfect health, all were fleeting, often deceptive, veils over a hidden cost. This isn't merely a recollection of events, it's a deep, visceral understanding that settles in your bones. The quest for the ideal, the relentless human yearning for perfection, carries an unseen burden, a silent tribute demanded from bodies, from homes, from the very earth itself. You realize how easily we can be entranced by the surface, by the dazzling allure, and how profoundly we can miss the subtle, insidious truths that lie beneath, patiently waiting to be revealed. The echoes, it seems, continue to resonate, reminding us that even the most beautiful of ideals can cast the longest and most dangerous shadows. You're standing now in a space that feels like the quiet aftermath of a storm, a stillness that carries the ghost of every previous experience. The air around you seems to shimmer with a phantom emerald green, a color that has woven itself into the fabric of your perception. That dry metallic tang, the subtle sweetness of almonds, they linger on your tongue, a constant low thrum beneath all other sensations. You instinctively smooth your hand over your clothing, almost expecting to brush away an invisible film of dust, a residue from ornate wallpapers or dried pigment from a confectioner's tray. You feel the persistent tickle at the back of your throat, a quiet reminder of lungs that have breathed in unseen particles, bodies that have absorbed insidious beauty. You recall the trembling hands of the factory girl, the pale face of the elegant lady, the subtle suffering of the child in the vibrant nursery. Their stories, once disparate, now converge into a single chilling narrative, the relentless, often unthinking pursuit of an ideal. The desire for flawless complexion, the lure of dazzling decor, the artistic obsession with a perfect hue, each a different facet of the same profound human yearning. And you realize with a quiet, unsettling certainty that the lesson, though revealed in stark headlines and scientific proofs, remains subtly unlearned. We are, it seems, perpetually drawn to the dazzling surface, to the promise of unblemished beauty, to the allure of perfection. We convince ourselves that modernity or knowledge will protect us, but the deeper human impulse remains, always seeking, always striving, sometimes unknowingly, always sacrificing. The very air you breathe in this moment seems to carry the echoes of that long-forgotten waltz, a silent dance between desire and danger that continues to play on, an enduring human susceptibility. It makes you wonder how many beautiful things, how many desirable ideals still hold their quiet, insidious price, waiting for another generation to fall under their enchanting, yet dangerous spell. The quest for perfection, it seems, is a cycle that never truly breaks, only shifts its guise, silently demanding its tribute in every age.